Mr. President.
The Senator from South Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today also to speak with regards to the work of the Veterans Committee. The Senate Veterans Affairs Committee yesterday, I should say, came to pass some very critical legislation. It's great to see the chairman and the ranking member and how they work together side by side, Republican and Democratic colleagues working together to improve the lives of our veterans and truly to begin the process of reforming a broken VA system. More than a year ago, the VA waitlist scandal was made public. One of the biggest reasons the problem grew so large was the lack of accountability within the VA. Yesterday, with bipartisan support, we reported out 5 bills. Among those were 2 bills focused on bringing accountability to the VA. I'd like to just talk about that process and about what I learned as a freshman senator stepping in and watching how, after listening to all the stories about how the Senate was dysfunctional and things weren't working right and Republicans would not work with Democrats and Democrats would not work with Republicans, I watched as the Chairman Isakson and Ranking Member Blumenthal worked their way through these bills and unanimously passed them out of committee. I also watched as some members offered amendments, and the chairman suggested strongly that perhaps they should withdraw them because we didn't have what we call pay-fors with them, where there might have been an expense, or we didn't have the report saying whether or not it would add cost to a VA system which was already short on funds in those particular areas. And rather than simply having votes and having acrimony, what those members said were, would you work with us to see that our goals would be accomplished? And I watched as our chairman, along with Ranking Member Blumenthal, committed to work to get the job done to make things better for veterans. It was not acrimonious. It was a matter of members of this committee working side by side, committing to help each other make the VA perform better than what they have in the past. That's the type of work that we need in the United States Senate. It's what our people want us to do. It's what veterans want to have happen. So I'm here to say that this can be done and it can be done correctly. And I will also tell you that in talking with members of that committee afterwards, there was a real interest, Republicans and Democrats side by side saying, look, there were some good ideas offered in that committee and that they would make good amendments to the bill, but we had to know what the costs were. And the commitment on both sides of the aisle was to find a way to work together. I commend the chairman, I commend the ranking member for their work and the way that they worked through some very serious issues. You know, the first one of those bills that we wanted to talk about was 1082, S-1082, the Department of Veteran Affairs Accountability Act. It was introduced by Senators Marco Rubio and Ron Johnson, and Senator Johnson, I'm sure, will be here to speak because he understands exactly from his constituents what the need is to reform the system. This bill would allow for the removal or demotion of employees at the VA based on performance or misconduct. It also gives the employee ample time to appeal the removal or the demotion. And finally, it extended the probationary period for senior executive service employees to make sure the high-ups are doing their job correctly. The second one, S-627, the Ayotte-Cassidy Accountability Bill, you've heard a little bit about it already. This bill would force VA employees who purposefully manipulated wait lists for veterans health care to repay their bonus. Seems like only common sense, kind of common sense we've got in South Dakota and that we'd like to have. And I know as the chair, or as the president's home state there in Nebraska, that kind of common sense that says if you're doing something wrong, you shouldn't get paid a bonus and be allowed to continue on. This behavior of any VA employee should not be tolerated, let alone rewarded. I am happy to see that this passed the committee, and it sent a message to the other hard-working employees of the VA administration that their hard work is not going to be tainted by individuals who are not doing their job correctly.